Welcome to your Impact Attack. That's right, your Impact Attack. You have been drafted. That's right, you're drafted right here to the Impact Attack. TNA selects the C in the VBC. Uh, so, welcome. I am Jamie Williams, sometimes known as the Vet. I am tagging in my tag team partner, Brandon, through the magic of the internet. Brandon, how's the draft been tonight, pal?
It's it's been a relatively safe draft. Like nobody really changing brands.
Hmm.
However, I do have a confession to make.
All right.
Uh, I heard through the grapevine that I'm actually getting drafted to SmackDown.
Oh,
So unfortunately, I have to go. I'll catch you
all right.
guys later. Take
Okay.
care.
You don't have to have a match or anything. Oh, there he goes. He's packed up and gone. Even the WWE, they don't.
Okay, I just went back and checked my source. Apparently, some guy, the guy I was talking to, I didn't catch his I didn't catch his full name. He just called himself Meltzer, and he told me just got done telling me plans changed.
Yeah, plans change. Yeah. Well, I guess that's good. That's good news. That's good news for the Impact Attack. We remain two people strong, at least for tonight. But who knows? Plans change. So, um, so hopefully everybody that was joining in the Raw watch along is filing on over, taking their seats over here in the Impact Zone to talk a little TNA. Some people call it real pro wrestling, not the sports entertainment bullshit. I can't tell the difference. So let's talk a
To
little.
to answer the thing about Carlito still getting drafted as part of the LWO, I don't think we've actually seen him get removed from the group in story on screen yet. So he's still technically part of them. At least I think that's what they're going for.
So, all right, let's talk about this for a second. We keep hearing the phrase new era. I mean, we always hear that phrase. We've been hearing the phrase new era for how many years? Like, it's been many years that different companies, different people, they always say it's a new era. It's a new era. In history, eras can last hundreds, if not thousands of years. And these people are sometimes talking like a couple of month title reign as an era. Like it's time is measured very differently in pro wrestling terms, but one thing we can be sure of is when someone says it's a new era, it is exactly the same era in many ways. And so far with what we've seen from the draft, like I haven't watched any of Monday Night Raw. It's not airing on my coast currently, but from what I saw on Friday's draft, it was the same old shit, as if not worse than it's ever been. In terms of, safeness. Like there's nothing really groundbreaking. They're not really shaking things up. They're not shaking the WWE to its very foundations or its very core, and the other stupid phrases that Vince used to use. Like it's just people going back and forth, and it doesn't make a difference. And there's the wild card, and people just show up whenever they want, and it's convenient. And like nothing ever really changes, and especially these days, it's safe because we're just trying to settle into what the new ownership and everything like that. So they kind of had things like as a starting point here, and they probably don't want to just completely upset the apple cart in terms of like, well, let's just flip every roster over. Plus you have considerations for the fact that Raw is only going to be on USA until a few more months, till the end of this year, October sometime. SmackDown moving to CW. Not to be confused with the CW app where you might find Billy Corgan's NWA and so on and so forth. There's lots of things to take into consideration.
I thought SmackDown was going to USA.
Oh,
NXT
sorry,
was going to
excuse me.
CW.
NXT's going to the app. I'm sorry, I misspoke. NXT's going to CW. SmackDown's going back to USA, where for a long time it was just like the USA was the only home of WWE programming. So nothing really new there. But does it matter? Like, in your opinion, um, is USA just losing a show and not gaining anything? Because um, they at one point, like I said, they had SmackDown, they had Raw, they had Sci-Fi had ECW, which was Sci-Fi is still under the Comcast umbrella, which owns everything NBC, um, USA, Sci-Fi. All those things are like directly under the Comcast company. So does it really matter like what you call the 2 hours of programming that USA gets? If you call it SmackDown or Raw and you change the night, but it's still just 2 hours of wrestling, now you're just losing 3 hours of wrestling. I mean, how do you think that works out for them in terms of like them being USA or Comcast, however you want to look at it, in terms of like what they pay to have the rights to air it versus the return they get on their investment? Do you think they think SmackDown is like a superior product just because it ran on network TV for a couple of years?
I mean, I'm sure that's how it kind of got spun was like, hey, our numbers, went up, over this period of time, this and that. I'm sure it's really going to sell, but, the reality is a little bit different than that. Like if they switch to, of course, with the switch to the USA, less homes, obviously. But I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I really don't. But I could see USA at some point down the line talking SmackDown and them extending SmackDown into 3 hours.
Right. Which it's never been. Raw had been, even in the old days, there were some times when Raw would get like the bonus third hour, which could be a reboot of Silk Stockings, as Lab Rat says. But is it like so sometimes Raw would get a bonus third hour or whatever, but it stayed 2 hours, and then at one point they just moved to permanent 3 hours. SmackDown could potentially just move to 3 hours, but
no 3 hours.
Yeah, please no. SmackDown as it is struggles to fill 2 hours. Like they would constantly be putting in recaps of stuff that people should have, they should know or they should have seen already. Lots of just time, like just airtime just being wasted on SmackDown, which is a good thing because when I watch it, I got to fit it into a 1 hour lunch break. And I can always fit SmackDown's 2 hours into a 1 hour lunch break. That's not always the case for every 2 hour show. So they have a lot of unnecessary skippable stuff on there. So padding it out to 3 hours would be like, it would be unwatchable, I think. You would almost have to just move Talking Smack to the end of SmackDown and just have that be the third hour, pretty much.
Dude, that would be a struggle to get through.
Yeah. So now here's what I would propose. Like if we were really, and I've said this for a long time, even before we had a new ownership, a new creative regime and all this other stuff. I've proposed that if you're going to even bother to do this whole draft charade, you do a shoot draft. One of two ways. Either one, you bring out the lottery ball roller like you did for the Royal Rumble and have people pick, and whatever you get is what you get. If all the stars end up on one show and then every other the other show has Cedric Alexander and like the guy that just got kicked out of Imperium and all this other, like, if that's all you get on the other show, then time to create new stars. You know, time to push these guys. You signed them, you paid them, make them stars. It's time to see how good your creative juices really are, right?
And there's a natural story there. Like if you wanted to do brand warfare, that's how you can have that emotional attachment to it of like, okay, these are like the outcasts, not the big stars. They're the little engine that could. They don't got, they're not, as charismatic or as big, but they got fight in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something, anything. Or if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to do the old lottery ball draft or whatever, then how about these people are bidding for the rights to air your program. So that must mean that at least somebody that works at whatever, USA, formerly Fox, but now look at Netflix executives, anybody who knows anything about wrestling and watches wrestling or knows anything about the current product, why don't you let them have picks? Why don't you let them pick against each other? You could make it seem like the WWE is actually doing the same old boring draft they usually do. You can have these celebrity, not celebrity guests or whatever guests, whatever legends, WWE Hall of Famers and stuff could come out and announce the picks and everything. But the picks could have actually been made like, hey, we want this person. And if someone else takes that person first, then you gotta actually go with that. Like, okay, well, they're off the board. So now I got to make my backup choice the way real drafts are done. If someone gets taken, sorry. I just think if you're paying for it, you should have some say in it, but why not give them all the say? Because then you probably will get something closer to a balanced roster because they're both going to want the best. Now, sure, some feelings are going to get hurt, right? Because there's not a timeline, there's not a reality in the multiverse where someone would pick Carmelo Hayes over all of the people he got picked over on SmackDown. Like, especially after the last times we've seen Carmelo Hayes as him getting beat by his own sidekick twice in a row. And then you're going to be like, well, I could get Randy Orton here, but I think Carmelo Hayes is a good... No, that would never happen. So yeah, sorry, Carmelo Hayes, your feelings may get hurt when you get picked last or next to last, but them's the breaks. If that's what Netflix wants, that's what Netflix gets. So that would be my proposal if you're going to keep this bullshit up. Or you could just, divvy it up once and for all and say, these are the people and these are the shows. Or you could just, and do that off screen and not make a program out of it. Or you could just say, yeah, we're just combining the rosters and we're not doing a brand split anymore. One of those. So that's what I think. What do you think about that idea? Letting the networks pick.
I think it's a good idea. They actually have legitimate stakes in it, so why shouldn't they be able to have a say in it?
Yeah. They did, when SmackDown first went to Fox, they actually did make it seem as though like Fox or SmackDown was actually picking. Like they showed like the little... They might still be doing that tonight. They did on Friday. They'll show like the little draft room, like in the, like, oh, look, there's a camera in the draft room. Look at these people at the table, very happy that they got the pick that they wanted. Like they played that up one year, the first year I think they were on Fox, but it was still just so.
Yeah, I think they had the dancing robot in there.
Cletus. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yep, draft going on. Feel free to keep up with the draft, keep the ticker going while you hang out and listen to us talk about TNA. We got some TNA news to talk about. We got any other news to talk about? Darby Allin getting hit by a bus? Anything we want to touch on before we get to some TNA focused news?
Dude gets hit by a bus and still makes it to see a Broadway show.
Oh yeah, Darby Allin's tough. Like no one's denying that. You know how hard it is to get those tickets? Come on, you're not gonna let a bus stop you.
How expensive they are?
Yeah, I'm saying. So he's making the most of his AEW money. thinking. Those Broadway. What was the Broadway show, by the way? What's playing right now?
I don't remember. It's just that he was there.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat can probably research that, find out what Broadway show Darby Allin was on his way to see. So Labrat says he didn't have bus fare, so he caught a ride. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would just assume with the state of public transit, state of New York, and everything like that, I would just assume that like it's surprising the bus made it there at all. You know?
Yeah, man, anything's possible these days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put anything past anything.
Yeah. Jerome says, how does one get hit by a bus? I don't know, but they all, isn't that one of the go-to things about like how you could die at any time and so you should treasure your life? People always say you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like that's the cliche phrase. So it's obviously happened enough in history that we've turned it into a cliche, getting hit by a bus. That's the end. That's the end of your life.
I want to know what the actual statistics are on that.
Right. Impossible to find. There's no way anybody could. Most undocumented bus victims, yeah, they probably get covered up a lot. So, but yeah, so yeah, but I didn't really notice anything too major in terms of like news stories. So I got a couple of TNA stories. At the top of the list, we have our boy Nick Nemeth. You may have heard of this guy as Dolph Ziggler, which I still basically call him. Yeah, I call him. That's what I call him on the reviews anyway. I'm not putting this Nick Nemeth guy over. I don't know. Nobody knows who that is, but he has, as of Saturday at Triple Mania, he has captured the vacant AAA Mega Championship. So he is a Mega Campeon, defeating Alberto Del Rio or Alberto El Patron. So, okay, I know some of you may be saying, who cares if this guy wins a fake belt, right? Well, what's interesting about it, he is the current New Japan Pro Wrestling Global Champion. And if you know anything about the history of CMLL and AAA, they are not on friendly terms. Have not been probably ever since AAA was invented. And it has gone even so far as to interfere in AEW bookings and other promotions bookings, in which if AAA talent is slated to appear on that particular program, then CML will not be appearing on that program. So while AEW has featured CML stars as of late, they have cut down on it's like it comes at a time when they've cut down on AAA talent. But as we see with Nemeth here, now simultaneously holding a title in AAA and a promotion that has an exclusivity partnership with CMLL in terms of cross promotion. New Japan and CMLL have been they've been exchanging talent for decades, and it's a relationship that still exists. So this is an interesting sort of like development in that area politically, but I don't know. It could be, obviously, this whole, these old sort of like, why are we still fighting type things. These all kind of need to go away, in my opinion. Nothing wrong with remaining, rivals or whatever. Like, y'all want to do better than each other, of course, but let's not let that get in the way of other companies maybe doing business. Yeah, okay. So maybe a AAA guy won't wrestle a CMLL guy in another company. Maybe we can avoid that, but we don't have to just be like, oh, you're friends with them, I'm not talking to you. That's like a social media beef. So
That's like a middle school beef.
A middle school beef, a middle school social media beef. So I mean that's that. So that's interesting. Any thoughts on that?
I 100% agree with you on that. It's dumb.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Labrat says, so what's with all these other promotions putting belts on outsiders? Yeah, it's anybody that they think can raise the visibility, I would suppose. You know, like if I'm sure the most people, okay, there's the pecking order of what the most people have heard of and are familiar with. Number one, WWE, right? That's the number one. Most people have heard of that. Then Dolph Ziggler. Then maybe AAA and Nick Nemeth are like on the same level. Like, so either way, to get visibility, and because maybe if Nick Nemeth can bring the Mega Championship onto programs like Impact that have as small of a viewer base as that may be, it's still bigger than AAA in the States. So if AAA wants to run shows across the border, if AAA wants to expand their presence in the US, if they even want to somehow get a TV deal somewhere in the United States, putting it on a known guy, it just raises some visibility. I question how much that stuff really matters in 2024, but it doesn't. It matters more than zero. I'll say that. It's just you see Dolph Ziggler with this belt, and you're like, "What belt is that?" And then you might Google it, and you might look at it. You might be interested. You might check it out. That's the hope. That's always the idea behind advertising. Like you could spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for like a billboard, you know, and that billboard will just sit there because they're hoping that you see that billboard and then check out whatever product that is on the billboard, whether it's, you know, like a snack cracker or, you know, an insurance plan, whatever like, they have no way of knowing how many people are their customers because of a random billboard that they paid for, but that's the hope, right? So look at the Mega Championship as a billboard for AAA that it's like a sandwich board that Dolph has to carry around now, hopefully. But then the last time people have won belts from other promotions Impact, they didn't really bring it with them. Like he hasn't brought his New Japan Global belt to TNA, has he?
I don't think
He
so.
mentioned it, he didn't bring it. So I don't know. I don't know.
I remember like in 09 and 10 when like IWGP belts were actually shown on TV and even defended.
Yeah. Because that's what New Japan wants, of course. Yes. Please show our belt. Acknowledge our existence. We weren't doing anything with it anyway. You go ahead. That kind of a thing. So let's see. Obviously, he wouldn't show up with this belt at this set of tapings that we're currently covering, but maybe the next set he'll bring it. We'll see. In other international news, it appears, here's a headline: TNA wrestling star Joe Hendry's new single tops UK iTunes chart. So I'll just read this as it is by Max Everett. It certainly seems like the UK believes in TNA star Joe Hendry. The Scotsman's catchy entrance theme, I Believe in Joe Hendry, has been an earworm for professional wrestling fans since he debuted in the Impact Zone, and earlier this week he rallied fans to purchase the single in a bid to top the charts. As of Monday, Joe Hendry officially found himself in the company of Taylor Swift and Hozier, seizing #1 in the daily iTunes chart. Hendry addressed the milestone on social media, calling for a continuation of the support so that he can definitively confuse the world by taking the top spot. So yeah, Joe Hendry Needs You. That's because my song that we filmed right here on the daily iTunes charts has got to number 1 in the UK, number 11 in Ireland, and number 44 in the United States, Hendry wrote. As for today, we've got to keep it going all week, but if we do, a pro wrestler could be number 1 in the charts this week. So folks, thank you so much for all the support. This is unbelievable. Love all you guys. And remember, if you believe, get across to iTunes, Amazon, wherever you download your songs. Go do it, and let's confuse the world. Let's get to the top of the chart. So, have you guys helped Joe Hendry achieve his dreams of reaching number 1 on the charts?
We believe.
Now, I do have to explain to young Joe that being ranked in the iTunes charts does not help you, or you can't. It will not improve if someone downloads songs from somewhere else that's not iTunes. So, saying get your songs from Amazon, that's not going to help the iTunes charts, but nonetheless, I think I understand his sentiment. He wants people to download it, and I assume it's just his theme song as is, the same one he comes out to. Is that my understanding for Joe Hendry's single that's being sold here?
I believe so. I haven't heard it yet.
All right. Well, let's see here. I believe in Joe Hendry. Amazon. Doing this live, actually. Don't want to have total dead air, but I'm on Amazon. That's if I did download music, that's where it is. 89 cents. I think I can scrounge that up. Let me see here. Let me click on this here. Believe it, Joe Hendry. Opening up Amazon Music. Purchase options. MP3 music. 89 cents. Pay now. All right. Thank you for shopping with us. Your purchase is complete and saved to your music library. All right. I've done my part, Joe Hendry. You're welcome. Hope you don't spend it all in one place. Don't spend your cut of that 89 cents all in one place. You know, try to make a wise investment. And you know, just freshening up your gimmick and putting a little more effort in, even more than you have, will be repayment enough for me. All right. Thoughts on Joe Hendry's astonishing climb to the top of the charts?
Good for him. I'm glad that's happening. He's getting exposure outside of wrestling.
We believe. We believe. So, I believe that's all I have. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we dig into Impact?
And I think the only real big time Impact news is that was mentioned during the show.
Oh, okay.
But one thing I've definitely noticed is the absence of a knockout who used to date the president of the company. Or dates the former president of the company.
Do you think they got drafted somewhere?
Drafted to sit at home.
That's a pretty good. I would like to be the number 1 pick of home. Me personally, but I don't know how they feel about it. They might want to work. Okay, well, I guess we'll just get to it. So, we're gonna start the show with Rebellion Ketchup. And did I forget? I already forgot if I saw the intro, but is Giselle still in the intro? In the intro video?
I do not remember. For a period, yeah.
I'm pretty sure last week she was, but I forgot if I saw it this week.
Yeah, this week was a different one because Sami Callihan was in it.
Okay. Maybe they were confused. You know what? I'm not going to make that joke. So we're going to start the show with Dolph, your new AAA Mega Champion. Not yet at this time, but he came out. Um, he was he admits that he's a loser and he blew it and he sucks and nobody likes him and he should probably retire. He said all this, or at least that's what I was hearing. Like as he was talking, like that's what was being like auto translated in using Google AI in my brain. That AI is translating everything he's saying as I'm a loser, I lost, I should just quit, I should leave, I'm a loser. And then he forces the word broken into his promo. So you know what that means. A broken guy has to come out to embarrass himself and everyone else in the wrestling business and all this other stuff. And then the system interrupts, thankfully. And Fat Eddie says that Dolph is not going to be the next Kurt Angle. He's going to be the next Eric Angle at this rate, which was a totally sweet burn. But of course, you know what that means. It means that there's going to be a match with Dolph Ziggler and Fat Eddie for your main event. Because there was a lot of, I don't know what this show was going to do if people didn't run into each other and start beefs live on the show. Because it seems like they didn't have no matches planned. But luckily, Santino was just making fresh, spontaneous matches left and right. So we got an actual 2-hour show. Otherwise, this could have been like a 15-minute episode of Impact. But yeah, that's our opening segment. What'd you think? Now, you did a live watch along for this episode, right?
Yep.
So, all right.
Yeah, not often enough you don't hear like the babyface taking accountability for like, yeah, I messed up. I don't know where they're going with the whole thing with Nemeth not actually getting pinned because they played that footage.
That's true. As a matter of fact, it was the weirdest thing ever because for what reason would a guy, let alone Moose, ever like grab a guy's hand or wrist and move it during a pin? Like I've never seen that ever. So
didn't make any sense.
Yeah, so chalk that up to like number 5 or 6 that went wrong during that match. Yeah. And anything else before we move on?
No. Again, I wish we would have seen some of the some more out of Matt Hardy, but that's just me.
Well, it's not just you, but I wish it were. So there's a ballot box and we're going to vote for Ali's next opponent. So I didn't perhaps I missed this, so you could clarify this. Was this Ali's idea or Santino's idea?
I believe it was Ali's idea.
Right. It makes sense. Like I like this as part of the gimmick, right? But Santino was very on board with the whole idea. Instead of like, you would think a character like him would be very reluctant. Like, why am I accommodating you? You know, you're a heel, I'm a babyface, like that kind of a dynamic. But he seemed to be very excited and all about it. So that was a little off. But anyway, they have the ballot box, and then the good hands come in and ask if it's possible for someone to be their own number one contender. Which it isn't. And then Jordan Grace comes in and she wants to talk to Santino if she can. So, which at that point, whenever somebody says, "Hey, can I talk to you?" that's when whoever's holding the camera is no longer interested in the scene. Funny enough, how that works in wrestling. Like right when a development is about to happen, that's when the camera just cuts off. Right? Like it's like they know. The cameraman knows. Like this is none of my business. Click. Like, can't film this. All right. So anyway,
Yeah, and you can easily just have that answer that by having them telling the camera guy, "Hey, this is private," and push him away.
Yeah, exactly. Easily, right? How much extra money does it take to do that over your budget? None. Okay. I didn't know. I thought it must have cost $1 million to tell the cameraman to fuck off. Anyway, we get a little. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, and I love how like the good hands have essentially become Corey and Trevor.
Yes, I 100% get that reference. Yes. Is this a Trailer Park Boys thing?
Yes.
All right. Yes, I learned that from working with Brandon. um, so we get a recap of the Knockouts title situation. And then we see Jordan Grace with Gia, no music underneath, and she has a non-title match next week against Miyu Yamashita, but she wanted to go and talk to Santino and be a fighting champion and make sure that her match is actually a title match with Miyu Yamashita. And then Miyu Yamashita comes in and says, next week I take your title. So this could have been a huge mistake by Jordan Grace. She probably didn't know that Miyu wanted to take her title, so now she's really stepped in it, huh?
Who at any point thought that Jordan was not going over in that match?
I don't know. I mean, that's why we have the matches. Maybe this last second change is gonna get Miyu Yamashita to ratchet up the violence, which she's gonna have to do. I don't see. So, I don't know if you've seen this woman before, but I believe, just like Joe Hendry, I believe she is one of the Tokyo Joshi Pro women, which are usually more rotten than the Stardom women. But I think she's okay. I've seen her a couple of times. She's not like at least she's not like one of the comedy wrestlers like Maki Ito or something. She's actually, she tries to take it seriously, but so we'll see how this works out.
Yeah, hopefully it goes well.
Yeah. I just hope Jordan gets kicked hard. Welcome to the business, that kind of thing. Yeah, I know she's been in the business a while, but still, I'm still mad at her running her mouth on social media. So, anytime somebody can get in there and kick Jordan Grace, I'm a fan. What we didn't see, speaking of Jordan Grace, I'll spoil it now. What we didn't see, was there any Jonathan Gresham stuff on this show?
No, there wasn't. That was kind of interesting.
You kind of like, reach down, give us a wank, give us a little wank, give us a little wank, and then you just leave. Like, that's it. You're just gonna leave us here like this, I don't
And
get
didn't
to
he
see the Jonathan with the new mask.
And didn't he re-sign with them too?
Think he did. Pretty sure. Nothing.
Yeah, no silver octopus.
Damn it. All right, well, that's okay. We can forget about him because we got Mike Santana now. Like, Mike Santana's gonna turn the fortunes of TNA around. He's gonna get people watching. He's, I'm sure there would have been more than 500 Rebellion buys if they knew Mike Santana was gonna be there. It would have ratcheted up to 150,000, but no one knew, so it was stuck at 500. But yeah, he's gonna take on the young goat, Byron Reed. That's not like it's not like an animal reference. Just in case anybody had just tuning in for the first time, never heard of Myron Reed, never heard of TNA, never heard of Vet and Brandon, never heard of Hami Media Group. Young Goat is not related to goats or farm animals of any type. He's just a guy from Kentucky. And he's part of the Rascals, I guess, officially now, or I don't know. Do they make that clear on commentary either. Did they say anything? They seem to be pretty tight.
I'm pretty sure he is part of the like whenever he appears on Impact, he's part of the Rascals because this isn't the first time he's been with them before.
Yeah, he did it, but then when he never showed back up again, I thought, oh, is he just teaming them that night? Like they had a extra buddy, or but now he kind of looks a little more part of the group. So we'll see. Um, yes. Elaborate points out Moose, but you don't typically see Moose on a farm unless it's like an invasion of some kind, right? Ooh, an invasion angle at the farm. The Moose versus the goat. Okay. Yeah, Mike Santana ain't gonna lose this match. So it's, sorry, Mr. Goat. You're gonna have to wait your turn. And then did you have any notes on the match itself?
Not really, just a quick get over match.
Okay. And then Burt Macklin comes out to cut the celebration short. And then he tries to run an op with his old unit. But at the last second, they go AWOL. So he's like, ah, shit. I can't fight this guy one-on-one. I'm out of here. Any closing comments on this particular segment?
I mean, it was what it was. Basically, kind of a reintroduction of Santana, although I don't really think it did much to tell us who he was. It just kind of showed us a little bit of what he can do in the ring if you've never seen him before. Didn't really give us enough of a showcase of him.
Yeah. Well, they know you didn't watch Rebellion, so. Steph DeLander has replaced Cardona with Big Con or just Con, whichever. I forget if he's big still. I guess this was just because Cardona got hurt. They may have had a plan to do like, the mixed tag with Cardona and DeLander, but they probably just, after the pec tear, they probably just put Khan in because it's like, well, you were fighting PCO last, so let's reignite this thing that was supposed to have just ended. Let's get it rekindled.
Yeah, I think that was the reason why it was good hands in DeLander's corner instead of Cardona, because he basically, in the story was that he hired them as his replacements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, smart. It's smart. You'd almost rather tear a pec than be in a match with PCO, but maybe not Cardona, but I'm just, like me, for example. So then, yeah, they're so anyway, yes, the challenge is to PCO and Jordan Grace, right?
Yep.
For Under Siege. Is that how it is?
Yep, at Under Siege. Steph DeLander Khan versus PCO Grace.
Okay. Yeah. So like is it, I know it's a, does it matter if it's a nitpick or not? We might as well. Does it matter that the heels are bravely challenging the baby faces?
I don't know, man. Like this whole thing with Khan and PCO jumped the shark a long time ago.
Right.
I mean, it's just, why are they still dragging this out? It's dragging both guys down.
And as for the women, it's like, well, Steph didn't win. So I could understand a heel wanting to get another shot, another bite at the apple, as Conrad would say, or something. But like, there's not going to be a title on the line in this tag team match. So you would think you would want to avoid contact. And I don't want PCO to hit me, anywhere near me. So the heels doing this challenge is kind of dumb.
Right, exactly. Like you would think like maybe it's because this match happens because Steph DeLander's pissed over what happened. So her and Khan get heat until finally the baby faces say, if this will get you to leave me alone, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have this match.
Right. Or Santino makes it against everyone's wishes. I need a match for Under Siege. How about you guys? Like something like that, because that's about as much thought as needs to get put into something like this. Clearly, he's making up the show on the fly, so we'll get to that pretty soon. As a matter of fact, we'll get to it right now, because Josh Alexander's in the ring, and before he can get too boring, the King of TNA interrupts him, so they can both be boring. And then that they argue about who should be the number one contender, and Josh says we could have this, we could figure this out right now in our street clothes, and Frankie says that doesn't work for me, brother. Like he literally says that. And then as the joke on Hogan, and then announcer Jade is informed by Santino that her husband will have a match for the number one contendership right now. Honey, you have a match right now. Your match that you wanted. I packed you a lunch. So we get Josh versus Kaz in street clothes. They have a match. Yeah, I'm fed up with both these guys, actually. They both, embarrass themselves enough times, to my personal viewpoint, that I've kind of washed my hands of, them ever being useful in wrestling again. And I just consider them both embarrassments. But, they do the finish comes where they do Kaz tries to do the Guerrero spot again with Mum EY, I guess we'll call him, because he comes out with his head comically wrapped in bandages. And he's got a chain with him, and
hits the Yeti.
Yeah, he stopped short of humping Frankie Kazarian in the ring with Josh Alexander on the other side, but it wasn't really any dumber. Like they just did the same thing where he takes the chain away from Kazarian that he tries to use, and then Kazarian takes the bump, and then it's like the referee's like, while the referee's stalling, Josh just drags Kazarian back with the ankle lock, and he taps out. So, but he bet on himself, so it's okay. Yeah. What did you think of all this mess? And if you can recall, what did the chat watching along with you at the time think of this mess?
That I don't remember, but man, that was just rough. Like, what? Like somebody else interferes in the match and hits somebody in the head with a chain. How is that not like the match getting thrown out or the match getting awarded to the guy who got hit?
You didn't physically see it. I mean, that's the only out you can give, is like the ref just turned around and caught him holding the chain because he took it out of Frankie's hands. But it's like that's one of those corny things. It's only a wrestling thing where, depending on what you want to do for your finish, the referee decides whether he should disqualify somebody sight unseen or not. Sometimes he needs to see it with his own eyes. Sometimes he'll just take the guy's word for it. I guess this was one of those times where he needed to see it with his own eyes. Maybe he went back and watched the match, and seeing that Frankie Kazarian is doing this lately and not going to fall for it. But they didn't play that up if that's the case. They could have told that story. They could have done that. The ref could have said to Frankie Kazarian, like, no, man, no. Or he could have got caught faking, right? Like, what if the referee turned around before he took the bump and like looked at him and was like, nice try. And then he's like, but he, and then that's when Josh grabs him. So you see how like a simple tweak like that, you could have got the exact same finish that you wanted, which was already lame, whatever, who cares? But like, if you got to have it be that way, if you got to do the Eddie Guerrero spot, if you got to have the ankle lock finish, You got to have the ref distracted. That tiny little tweak makes it make sense, and you could go on about your days. Can't even get that out of you guys. Like, seriously, you're a whole wrestling company. Like, I'm just a guy sitting here talking about it. Don't let me outbook your finishes. Or just send me a check. Send me Joe Hendry's cut of the 89 cents that I just paid to buy his single.
And the TNA Stooges that are watching, how you guys doing? Glad to have you being a part of the chat.
Yeah. Just lurking. I don't know. Maybe Lab Rat is really somebody else. Is Lab Rat Tommy Dreamer all along? I don't know. Don't cry. Don't cry if you are. Don't cry that I found you out. So, all right. So we're back at the ballot box. You know, the hub of the show. The ballot box on a random podium just sitting by itself. Very cute. Santino's there. Jake Something's hanging out there. Cody Deaner's in there. Hammerstone comes in. He does like a Labra says, I can fit in my cage. Thank you very much. All right. Fair enough. So then, yeah, Hammerstone and Something kind of get into it, and some gentle shoving leads to what I presume will be a meat match at Under Siege with these guys. And meanwhile, while this is going on, while people are getting distracted by these two giant men pushing each other in the titties, the rascals sneak in and start stuffing the ballot box with what we don't know yet. Stay tuned. Thoughts? No thoughts? Frozen thoughts? Okay, we're back.
Yep, I apologize. I don't know what's been going on. My internet's been getting shitty lately.
Yeah, man, it's like it's happening all over the place. Jimmy was having shitty internet in Australia. It's everywhere my issues sometimes, but mine a good day. I think. I don't know about this broadcast, but I streamed for like almost 5 hours earlier and I didn't have any hiccups, so I don't know. But what was the last thing you heard?
Something about Hammerstone talk and during the ballot box thing.
Yeah, the big guys shoved each other, and then the rascals came in and stuffed the ballot box while everybody was distracted with that. That's all I said.
Okay, cool.
And then I just pitched it over to you for thoughts.
Yeah, it played into the how the whole ballot thing ended up, and I honestly thought it was kind of a funny satire on kind of the American voting system.
Yep. Well, you know.
That's a great question, Lab Red. I appreciate you asking, but no, I'm not AI.
I can't talk about that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Yeah, I can't talk about that right now, but just make sure you're always checking out Impact Attack and all the great streams we got going on. They're all exciting.
Yep. Numbers are Ben Hameen is very happy with the numbers, and all right. First class arrives with Bun B, and then we get first class with Bun B and Gia on the ramp. I would say no music underneath, but they did come out to We Outside, so like there was some music, but it wasn't playing throughout their interview, so that's fine. So they're all everybody has like a Trill Burger hat. They even give one for Gia, and she just holds it. And then she asks if they thought that, she asked Rich Swann like about his tainted victory, and then they say some stuff, and then Gia hits the say his name tagline. She works that in awkwardly somehow, and then Hendry just appears next to her on the stage. And AJ Francis is freaking out, like, how did he do that? And it's like, well, I'll tell you how he did it. I'll spoil the magic for you, AJ Francis. The camera was tight on Gia, and then he walked in off screen, and then the camera pulled out enough to see him. That's how they did it. It was amazing. You could have seen him too if you were looking like in that direction, which you were. So that's the amazing part. Is you actually did see it. You know how it happened. He walked over. Anyway, Hendry takes the hat and wears it and says that he's humbled and that he will give an apology next week. What a cliffhanger. I can't wait to hear the Joe Hendry apology, and I can't wait to hear what Brandon thought of this.
What I my main thought was like, how it makes First Class look dumb for them to not think like, okay, this is Hendry's going to troll us again.
Yes.
Like, how do they not see that coming?
But so just in case anybody wanted to know, Trill Burgers is a burger chain that apparently is co-owned by Bun B, and it, of course, if it's co-owned by Bun B, it's got to be in Texas. Houston? Is it Houston? Yep. Houston, Texas. Which makes sense because Underground Kings. Rest in peace, Pimp C, and other such things. So this goes directly into the concierge doing the intro for Ash by Elegance. And then we get the first time ever fifth match of Ash by Elegance against Isaiah Brookside, as we were promised. And they have a match. It's Ash versus Zaya. Not the Zaya that just got released from WWE, a free agent, the white one.
TNA needs to sign Zia Lee and do an angle where like they think they're twins. Like they legit think they're twins. And everybody else is like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, normally I would say that's a terrible idea and then I would release you from your contract. But since it's TNA, I'll allow it. Let's just do it. Who cares? Let's just do it. Yeah, Liz, I don't know if you need to check out Trillburger. I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe if you're in Texas, you just play it safe and get Whataburger instead. But, it's up to you. All right. So, maybe this is why the ref didn't catch Frankie Kazarian, but then again, you could have just changed this finish slightly or done it a different time. But the concierge gives Ash by Elegance a pair of bejeweled knuckles. And I've never seen that before, but anyway, she does get caught by the ref. He's like, hey, you can't punch her with that. That's illegal. And then she gets rolled up in the confusion. So Zaya Brookside has given Ash by Elegance her first defeat in TNA. All right. How was this booking?
It was all right until the finish. I think like if you're going to introduce something like that that's kind of personalized and custom to somebody's character, that should be like something that's established as a weapon, and she should have went over with it.
Right. She should, the first time we're seeing it, it should work, right? Get people conditioned to it, used to it, and then
the payoff is when it doesn't work and you get somebody else over off of it.
Yeah. Well, When you're right, you're right. Any other thoughts?
I mean, I thought it went a little long in my opinion, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, she did grab a couple of chin locks. It's like, hey, we already have an ex WWE person with long blonde hair that grabs chin locks here. Okay, you don't need to take up the mantle, right? It's vote counting time, and Trey wins by a suspiciously large margin, as Santino says. And so this is very disputed, especially by the ABC, uh, which Chris Bay asks who's the next highest vote getter, and he says it's Ace Austin. And so Ali says there's clearly been some voter fraud here, and he thinks that nobody should be a number one contender. But then Santino says that they should just take the top two uh, vote getters, and they should have a match next week to determine the number one contender. So it'll be, I guess that'll be Ace and Trey. So even though Trey Miguel clearly cheated, he still gets to be like in consideration as if any of his votes would have been legitimate enough to outnumber Ace, which defeats the entire purpose. But I guess since the whole thing is a fucking rib, it's fine. They need a number one contender somehow, so this is as good a match as any. So yeah. Anything before we move on?
No, I thought it was funny.
It's a little funny. I'll give him that. But you know what? Not so funny, other than the kind of funny that just makes you mad, is all of these ballot box bits were done in front of that garish, hideous lighting that we've worked so hard to expunge from the program.
So bad.
Yeah. So again, Impact spies, TNA spies, like this does not need to be, if anything, for Ali's sort of gimmick, we need like a big velvety curtain or some shit like that, like for a backdrop. We don't need this shitty,
or flag, or what he should do is get flags with his symbol made and have that be the backdrop of like his promos.
Mm-hmm. Hell, you could even have the Good Hands or whoever else. You could show them like putting it up, like hanging it. Free idea. Speaking of them, they have demanded a match with Sami Callihan. And when he was offered the choice of which good hand he wanted to face, he chose both of them. Which is not the first time that he's ordered double of something, clearly. I mean, look, Sami. I thought we were rid of this guy, but he's back now. Fat as ever. He looks like and he looks more ridiculous even like than he did last time I saw him. He looked he looked like Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure in his goth phase. Like that's what Sami Callihan looks like.
Poor Alicia's gonna have a hard time fighting for scraps at the catering table.
Yeah, dude, just come on, dude. And it sucks too, because even though like Fat Eddie is, I think he's getting fatter. Spoiler alert for the main event. Like even through his shirt, like I can see his stomach seems bigger, like a little bit, not like a lot, but a little bit bigger. And even Lish, now is like, I mean, she clearly has some cake, right? At least in this episode. But yeah, like still, now that that Sami Callihan is back, it's gonna be, I think that's where the real story is. We need to turn the cameras on that catering area and just get the shoot. I never rooted for the good hands so hard in my life, which is like that's just a given because I've never done it before either. So this was automatically the hardest time I've ever rooted for them, but there was no point in rooting for them. We knew it was going to happen. Jason Hotch gets pile driven, and that's that. But we knew that.
And that's had a spot in there where Callahan did a paper cut between their fingers, and then they go for their good hands, handshake, and then they shake, and then they sell the paper cuts.
Right. Because you always shake you always shake hands with the space in between your fingers. What was he pulled out like a photo of was it himself? Like who was on that, or was it Ali, or like who was on the photo that he ripped and like used to do the paper cut spot?
Man, I don't remember.
It was like somebody's 8x10.
Yep.
I thought it was him, but I don't remember. But yeah. Yeah, hey, sure, why not? Then Burt Macklin tries to recruit a king. I guess if he figures if he's going to wage war, he ought to get to a king. So he's trying to work something out with Kowalski's heir himself. Might not work out. Might. I guess we'll see. We'll see if that works for him, brother.
Brother.
Yep, brother. Crowd shot of Ryan Nemeth. Just, sleeves cut off. So. And then our main event is Fat Eddie versus Dolph. I mean, the system's kind of out there, right? Like I said, Alicia's got a scandalously short skirt on. Myers' stomach is hanging out through his dress shirt and his slacks. They're out there. I would have liked to see Moose sort of like preside over this like a kingpin. Like maybe bring out like some ridiculous ornate chair and set it at the top and just have him just like watching it, stroking his chin, like, yes, this is all going to plan, and then whatever, but none of that.
Or if you're going to try to do like the Four Horsemen thing with them, like that's how you're trying to present them, why not have like the table set out at ringside with like fine dining, champagne, and women around them, and they'd sit at ringside and just watch?
Oh, I know why that. There's no food left because Sami Callihan was there, and then the women are like, TNA's like, we're not gonna pay anybody extra to come in here. And also, if they did, they'd take one look at Sami Callihan and they'd return the the money. But yeah, so these guys have their match. They're working hard. I don't think they've worked together before, at least not much. Certainly, Dolph has always been in the WWE, so he probably didn't run. He never ran into anybody on the Indies, but I don't know if. I'm sure there's no live events either. So this is probably the first time these guys have gotten in there. So there's a novelty factor for that. Everybody for Nick Nemeth is a first time match. So, as long as he doesn't screw up as many spots as he did in the Moose match, then that'd be great. And I put the blame on him because how many matches with Moose have we seen where that never happens? So you got to kind of look at which one of these things doesn't belong here. This guy shows up and now all of a sudden there's botches in Moose matches. So, speaking of which, I can't blame Nick Nemeth for this. Moose comes in after the the jump ups and the distractions and the part where Brian Myers goes and shoves Ryan Nemeth, um, and then security is there to hold him back, because security's always got double, triple, quadruple up on one audience member just to make sure. But yeah. But so while this is going on, Moose comes in with the worst belt shot I've ever seen. This is god awful. Sorry, Moose. I love you, man. And I'm not suggesting that you actually kill somebody with the belt, but there is a way that you can at least look like you're hitting the guy, even if you're not. It's all about the body language and the torso rotation. Moose comes in and he kind of just eh. He kind of taps him with it, where if you're trying to hit a guy without hitting him, you put the belt in the crook of your arm, and then you just but you rear back and you swing your whole arm, and then you don't hit him directly, but you brush over or graze or something like that with your with the safe part of your tricep or whatever. And then he sells it. It looks like he got killed, and you look like you tried to take his head off, but in reality, the belt didn't touch you. But he actually touched him with the belt, and it looked like the weakest thing ever. It probably hurt, actually. He was probably ow. But it still looked like shit. So, looks like shit, hurts like hell, the classic. Or as we call it in the business, the King Kong Bundy, usually. So, there was that, and then Eddie hits the Boston Knee Party. And, that's 2 L's in a row for Mr. Nemeth to the system. And then they get in there, and then they get the chair. Moose gets the chair. They get the 2 chairs. They put the chair around his neck. They Pillmanize him. Moose Pillmanizes him with a baseball swing from one chair to the other, kind of like Evil does. But he... So now after this, Speedball Mountain runs in, and Ryan Nemeth finally gets clear of security to get in there. And I will say I don't really like this, but Eddie was after that happened, Eddie threw up a sarcastic X, I don't know, he's hurt, that's just me not being a fan of inside stuff used as, content. But again, with so much shitty stuff on here, that's nitpicking. What did you think of the main event and the post and everything involved?
Well, with the X thing, I think that's kind of been used as a work enough times to where I think the audience knows okay, this could be real, it could be fake, who knows? I think it's been incorporated enough to where Eddie sarcastically doing that, I think it kind of worked.
Okay. All right.
As far as the match goes, it was a decent match. The guys worked hard. I think Nemeth should have went over kind of Eddie slips on a banana peel. He gets a quick 1, 2, 3, and then the system just lays him out and beats the shit out of him.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you got a 50-50 either way. Generally, the terminology of slip on a banana peel I think of in terms of baby faces. But nonetheless, it's they still sort of, they protected him. He did have the champ hit him with a belt, so that's yeah. And I like piling on, and even in kayfabe, I like it when he loses. It warms my heart to see him get pinned. Those smug shoulders securely on the mat for a count of 3. Always love it. Feels like my favorite sports team won a match, so that's good. So selfishly, I don't mind it, but I kind of feel look, if you're trying to get heat, I'm just telling you, I'm fucking tired of this whole, oh, well, Dolph can get a quick one, but don't worry, we'll get your heat back. Like, I mean, at one point, Eddie was supposed to be passed off as a main eventer in this company. It's not like it's out of the realm of possibility that he could have won anyway. And I don't like, I always hate the idea of, like the quick one just so that the heels can get heat. If you want to get heat on heels, how about you pile on to the baby face? Like, you lost and fuck you. Like, that's how you get heat. No one really believes in heat. No one cares if you roll a guy up or even, whatever. Like, these guys ain't get beat with finishes anymore anyway, for their egos. So I like the fact that Nick stayed down for a finish, even if it was dirty, but he still got pinned with a finish. He didn't get rolled up. He didn't get a tights pull, but he lost. And then they're like, and now we're gonna fucking cripple you just because, it's to get heat on heels. If you can get it at all in 2024, you have to do it in ways that make them irredeemable. And they have no reason to be this harsh on Nick Nemeth because he challenged for the championship. He lost. And that's it. They don't need to take revenge on him, but they're doing it anyway because they're that big of assholes. That's the whole point of getting heat. That's the whole point of being a heel. If we just, to quote a guy that used to book TNA, if you always do what you always did, then you always get what you always got. So that's my thoughts on it. But Moose still, regardless, no matter who's winning or how or what happens after, you gotta do that belt shot right. That's what you gotta do. I will demonstrate when my Moose action figure arrives. I will open it and I will put the little belt in little Moose's little hands, and I will replicate the correct. Because there's so many points of articulation. You guys really got to check out these figures. I don't know if they're sold out yet, but go to Power Town Wrestling and see. But I'm quite sure I can actually replicate a good belt shot with the Moose action figure. So I'll be doing that whenever that day comes. If it doesn't get canceled again. If my pre-order doesn't get canceled, I will demonstrate a Moose belt shot with Little Moose. But maybe perhaps Brandon can demonstrate how this show could have been improved beyond all the free improvements that I gave them with the punching up Impact.
Yes.
Oh shit. Why do I feel like it's going to be more Matt Hardy on this show than there was? Maybe we don't do a punching up Impact this week. Maybe we just go straight to the finish, but no, all right, let's do it.
All right, so we open up with our recap and ketchup packet. And go to intro, pyro, and ballyhoo. Cut to the announce table where they run down the card for the night. And they talk about recent events, not Under Siege, Rebellion, and give their thoughts on the show. Then we go to the in-ring with Nick Nemeth, The System, and Matt Hardy. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance, same promo as on the show. Matt Hardy, music and entrance, same promo as the show, where he shows the footage that Moose didn't pin Nemeth. The System is out, same promo that sets up Nemeth versus Edwards for main event. Then we go backstage with Ali, Santino, Good, Hands, and Grace. Same segment we got on the show before we go to our first commercial break. And then come back with the Under Siege vignette with the System. Recap the Knockouts title match at Rebellion. And then we have our interview with Gia and Grace that goes the same on the show. Match number 1, Mike Santana versus Myron Reed. Mike Santana, music and entrance. Myron Reed, music and entrance with the Rascals. Same matches on the show. Macklin out. Same thing happens. Yeah, first a little bit of it kind of does go a little bit the same. But we do have a little change here. We go backstage to the System's locker room. Each member of the System finds something in their bags that represents something from their past. The System wonders why those things are there. Matt Hardy can be heard laughing before we go to our second commercial break.
Oh, I see. So when you said there was something in their bags, I was worried. I was like, "Oh man, are we flying in X-Pac for this show?" Or...
And then we come back with Santino, Ali, and PCO. PCO cast his ballot, and he and Ali have a stare down. You go to the pre-tape of First Class arriving earlier in the day and being elitist douchebags towards venue workers. Then we go to a vignette of Decay. They talk about how they underestimated Spitfire and how they had to step up their game and show how demonic they can be to get those Knockouts tag team titles back. In ring, Josh Alexander.
Back to the demon realm to learn some demonism.
And then back to in ring with Josh Alexander, Frankie Kazarian. Same thing we got on the show. Ref comes out and says the match is starting now before we go to our third commercial break. And come back with our second match, Josh Alexander versus Frankie Kazarian. A much more condensed version of the match on the show. Except, it's the finish is what we talked about.
I like condensation, and I like my finish.
And then we go backstage with Santino, Ali, Dean, or something, and Hammerstone. Same thing we got on the show. And then we go backstage to the Systems locker room. They wonder why their personal catering hasn't arrived yet. Myers tries to contact the caterers, but they are not answering. Then we go to the stage promo with Gia.
This is where Sami Callihan comes in. Am I spoiling it?
No, but I wish I would have thought of that. I wish I would have thought of that.
It's not too late. It's not too late. Substack can be edited. All right. Go ahead.
So we get the same promo we get with Gia in First Class and Joe Hendry. Then we go to the announce table where they talk about developments so far tonight before they're cut off by Ash's concierge. We have our third match, Ash by Elegance versus Zaya Brookside. Same match we get on the show, except this time Ash goes over with the jeweled knuckles.
Power of the bejeweled punch.
Right, and I thought that would actually help build up Zaya Brookside, like to finally actually be the one to end Ash by Elegance's undefeated streak. But just
she gotta lose a few teeth first.
Yeah.
Even more so than British people usually. You know what? Never mind.
And then we go backstage with Santino and Ali. Last wrestler cast their ballot. Santino says they'll announce the results after the break. Go to our fourth commercial break. Come back backstage with Santino and the Rascals and Ali. ABC, same segment we got on the show. Match number 4, Good Hands versus Sami Callihan. Good Hands music and entrance. Good Hands cut a better promo on their way to the ring. Sami Callihan music and entrance. Same matches that we got on the show. Backstage, Macklin and Kazarian, same on the show. And then we get a Crazy Steve vignette where he congratulates Laredo Kid on beating him for the title. Says their feud has just begun, and it ends when he says it ends. And then we go backstage to the System, and
yeah, I just realized that. Like, Laredo Kid, nowhere, right?
Yeah, just got the title. Nowhere to be found.
Yeah, let's see if he was on Explosion or something.
So we go backstage with the System, and they see that their catering is being delivered to Nick Nemeth and Speedball Mountain's locker room. The System asks what's going on. The employees tell the System that Matt Hardy paid them more to deliver their catering to Nick Nemeth and Speedball Mountain.
Now, this is the part where you could, like, if you did want to punch up, you could say, like, we can't eat all this. So we hired somebody, or not hired, but, we got somebody that can. And then that's when Sami Callihan comes in. He's like, oh, I'm famished from kicking the shit out of 2 guys. And then he just goes.
Yeah, he walks into the shot and says, hey, can I get some of that?
Yeah. Well, I do like the idea of them, like, we're stealing this. This is a plan, and we've also planned to get rid of it. Like, it's a premeditated Sami Callihan invite. I like that.
All right, see where we're at. Then we go to our 5th commercial break. We go backstage with Gia and Josh Alexander. Gia says it looks like that Josh Alexander is the next number 1 contender. Josh says he's not really sure what's going on, but he's going to keep paying attention to what's going on with the System, Nick Nemeth, and Matt Hardy. Then we go to our New Japan hype video and go to the announce table, run down the card for next week's Impact, run down the current card for Under Siege. Match number 5 in our main event, Nick Nemeth versus Eddie Edwards. And basically goes the same way as it does on the show. And that's our Impact.
All right. So now Under Siege is like this week, right?
Either this week or next week.
It
Because we've seen this
what
before where they scramble like, okay, announce the card and then try to use what little time we have to build it.
I thought it said like May 4th or what was May 4th? Let me look. TNA Under Siege May 3rd, yeah.
Oh, damn. See, yeah, it is this week. Shit.
So already,
Why do they do this?
because they're the worst. That's why. They are the worst. We haven't even gotten a chance to celebrate Laredo Kid's title win on a TV broadcast, and we're already running another, premium show.
Premium live event, pal.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Can't wait. But I guess I won't have to wait long. So yeah. Well, that's our show, and that's our Punching Up Impact. Labrat says, who will Moose be hitting? He doesn't have to hit anybody. I can just demonstrate the motion with the toy, and that should be enough. Another 40 buys. That's right. Can't wait. Now, remember, don't think, I made my, my jokes, and I had my fun about their 500 pay-per-view buys, but remember, that's 500 pay-per-view buys. I'm sure many more people stole it, right? Well, I certainly didn't buy it. But yeah. So, I guess that's pretty much all we have to say tonight. So we'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your evening or late night or whatever it is. We'll get on out of here. Brandon, where can the people find you?
As always, you can find me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X at Transarchistia. I am also still in the process of figuring out what I want to do with my Twitch channel, so that's kind of still under construction at the moment, but it is currently at twitch.tv/Miss Tia the Transarchist. I am also on Substack at HMG Brandon. I've also started doing some live watch-along streams on the HMG YouTube channel, so depending on how busy my night is or if I'm working that night, I'm probably going to be up on this channel streaming some wrestling watch-alongs, so come hang out.
How much closer are you to suicide now that you've added more wrestling hours into your daily schedule?
Not any closer than I already was. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. So it's not pushing you any closer to the ledge. That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. But not everybody has the mental constitution I have, so I always am concerned whenever anybody tries to watch wrestling. But that's good. And of course the chat makes it fun. And that's you guys make everything fun. You're really the reason why we're doing this. So we have to say thanks and continue to enjoy those watch-alongs at your leisure. As for me, if you can't find me on one of these watch-alongs sometimes when I can fit it into my schedule, you can find me at Opinion Haver on all of your favorite social media platforms. More social media platforms than the Digital Media Championship is on, that's for sure. And you can find me every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, to talk about NXT for the Next Level Wrestling review of Big Ray Hernandez. And we'll cover all the people that aren't there anymore because they just got drafted. And that'll be a fun time. And we're going to this week have to talk about Spring Break and Night 2. Not only WrestleMania has 2 nights, even NXT broadcast TV shows get 2-night events. So they just put it a week apart. So that's very exciting, and you can check us out. And if you missed part 1,
kind of like TNA 1000th episode.
Kind of like that, yeah. So you could check out the archives on channelattitude.com. Catch up on Spring Break and Night 1 where we had Jimmy T come on with us. So speaking of Jimmy T, if we're talking about Jimmy T, we got to be talking about the wreckage. Twitch, where we talk about Collision and review AEW Collision every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, live on your Hameen Media Group YouTube and Twitch channels, and on the PWC network, if you prefer. Then, maybe that's not enough. Maybe you're like, hey, that's great and everything. Watch-alongs are great and reviews are great, but what can I ask a pro wrestling legend a question? Well, I've got the place for you. It's Wrestling with Rip Rogers live Q&A every Friday at their concrete time of 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And not only can you ask Rip Rogers a question, but you can subscribe and you can get stories from the territories once a week. He just finished up covering part 2 of Calgary, and pretty soon he'll be going over to Puerto Rico and talking about his time. So these are like 15 to 20 minute videos where Rip can just detail his experience, who he worked with, what was going on in the territories at that time. So if you want a personalized sort of history lesson on some of those territories, go to that channel, check that out. Stevie Richards has a wrestling analysis channel. It's kind of in limbo at the moment, but he's gearing up for something big, which is going to kind of have to move mostly to Patreon, because YouTube and Google and everybody else has, and with the copyrights, and really it's, these other companies have made it almost impossible for him to get any sort of quality footage uploaded on his channel. So he's moving it over to Patreon, and he's condensing all the tiers into the $3 tier. So for $3, you get everything that you could have got. And that's a great deal. But if you're not down with that, well, we got 2 words for you. But if you're not down with that, there's always still the fitness channel with lots of healthy tips for diet, working out. We've got the Big Fitness Show with Big Mike Behrens, and he's got his own YouTube channel where he's putting up videos and reviews and things like that. And they're talking about things like how to get more sleep. What are the factors that keep us from getting sleep, and what can we do to improve our sleep quality and sleep quantity? So that's the latest episode of the Big Fitness Show, and that's free everywhere. You don't have to worry about paying for that. And I believe that Stevie's lovely wife has also announced that she's doing another podcast, and she's dragged Stevie into it. So, there's just, you can't escape Stevie Richards. Even if you want to, you'll find him somewhere. So support him however you can. I'm sure he would be very appreciative of that, as would I, as would we. And that's going to do it for us. So for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.